Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are having a great day. So, I know it's been a good while, and I know that I have not been able to make a recap in my tournament games, despite playing a ton to improve my rating because it was already hard enough managing college and chess training. And because of that, I decided that I will choose three games that were the most memorable for me during my last year of college. And I would say that my last year of college was pretty successful in terms of my chess, and hopefully this will make a good comeback. So please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel as I will try to recap my games more regularly. And let's get started. So the first game that you will see here is a game that I played back in March, and this is the last round of a pretty big tournament. And this was probably one of the most crazy game that I've ever played in the Sicilian. And this also tests out my new repertoire. I mean, I meant new, but I've been playing it for a while. It's just that I haven't played good again against good players yet. So let's jump straight into it and let's see what's so interesting about it. So, as I said, it's the Sicilian, so we start out with e4 and c5, and knight f3, and I play e6. So I don't play, I don't really play the dragon, and I used to play Tamanov, but now I don't play the Tamanov anymore, so I play somewhat of a different variation of e6 Sicilian. So d4, c takes e4, knight takes c4, and a6 going for the con. And I've been liking it so far simply because I don't want to, or I can't really learn a ton of theory. I'm not a person who can afford to learn a ton of theory, simply because I will just forget them. And this just gives me a lot of flexibility and allows me to play even in worse position. Not that it's good, objectively speaking, but it has been a very great weapon for me so far. So I continue with knight c3, pretty normal. Queen c7, and now g3. A very typical anti-Sicilian. And my response to anti-Sicilian has been very similar. And it's also why I chose this opening, is because I can merge my responses so to make it similar enough where I don't have to think so much on how to respond to each one specifically. Because let's say if you play the dragon, sometimes you have to adjust your move order a little bit, because move order matters. Here it also matters a little bit, but it's much clearer. So let's say g3, bishop g2 is an idea, and my idea eventually is to develop my bishop to b7 because I play e6. So as you can see, this bishop is pretty bad. So I want to fianchetto it this way. And I don't want this bishop to get to here first, right? Because e5 will be ideas and I'll have to trade. So I decided I'm just going to play b6. Now I don't play b5 because b5 is a very committal move, and I want to reserve the ability to play b5. Now you might say, well, why don't you play b6? Why just gonna play a4, right? Yes. But there's a downside of white playing a4 is that you look at this knight, it's no longer the a4 square for the knight that jumped in. And the main problem with b5 is that a4, if a4 is played and I play b4, now my pawn structure is a bit awkward. And while this pawn is protected by the bishop, I need to play d6 at some point, and this pawn would not be protected anymore. And so that's the reason why I chose b6, to fit into my repertoire. So bishop g2, bishop b7, castles, and d6. So far pretty standard for me. And basically this, for this Sicilian, I just say I do my own thing, you can do whatever you want, and I'm going to play chess. And so my opponent started playing really aggressive with f4, which I say, okay. It's been happening a lot because, and it makes sense too, because it's fine for white to just attack and not let black doing whatever they want. And that's pretty normal. So this is pretty good practice for me. So I still stick to what I play, knight d7. And now f5 very early on, and I was quite surprised. Now here, this is where things change, because usually my pawn sits on e6 for very, very long. Except when you see f4, f5, you pretty much have to play e5. So I play e5, kicking the knight with tempo, allowing me to do other things. And now this is kind of coming back to a Najdorf structure somewhat. But again, I'm not a Najdorf expert by any means, so I still need to learn a lot. So knight to b3, knight to f6, just looking to prevent knight d5 and stuff like that. So bishop e3, and now here I play a rare idea of h5. Now, the reason I play h5 here is because, well, my king is, you look at my king, is not really going to be castle into this pawn storm. And developing and castling here also takes a while. So then I thought, well, might as well just keep the rook here, right? I just want to keep the rook on my h file. And if white ever attacks, I can open it up. And now my rook is going to be active. And also, you look at my king in the center, this pawn structure is quite solid. Especially this pawn on e5 is protected by a pawn, and now there's no pawn that can touch this e5 pawn anymore. So now all I have to care about is my pawn on d6, because what's protecting it is the bishop. So I need to not lose this bishop. That's what I need to do, which is why knight d5 needs to be prevented, because eventually I will play bishop e7, and I don't want to lose my bishop. So h3. He's still trying to go for g4. And here I thought, well, realistically, I can't stop it, so there's nothing I can really do. But then again, I said before, I can't castle kingside, and my decision was that, okay, I'm not going to castle. So I just go on with my plan, play rook d8, kind of showing to my opponent that, okay, go ahead and push your pawns. I'm not going to castle. What are you going to do? So g4, pawn takes g4, pawn takes g4, and funny enough, this is actually pretty bad for white, but with only the right execution from the black side. Now, I play knight c5, which looks normal because my thinking was that, okay, I need to, if I want to be able to play d5 at some point, or potentially open up this d file, I need to do something, right? Because at the end of the day, my pieces are fairly passive. So if you look at white's pieces, they are quite active. So if I'm able to trade some of my pieces off the board, that would be great for me. And also g5 is coming. So I was thinking, my plan was thinking, okay, I can probably drop my knight on f6 back to d7. So that's why I play knight c5. And there are two pieces that can take it. That can take it. And most likely, my opponent was going to take it. That's why I expected. And it took with the knight. So I took with the pawn. And sure, I weakened this pawn a little bit. But as I said, nothing is really touching the... There's no pawn that can touch this pawn on e5 right now. And so by taking with the d pawn, I eliminate the backwards pawn on d6, which was very nice, because now, okay, my bishop, it can do a bit more, hopefully in the future. Not right now, because it's just staring at a pawn getting blocked. So queen f3, c4, and my opponent, again, just going crazy here. g5, and I went knight d7. Now, knight d7 was a little passive by me, but I remember that in the tournament I was not feeling great, and I was just saying, okay, I'm just going to play conservatively, which has been my play style. And I didn't see why knight h5 was good. Now, it turns out the engine say knight h5 is good simply because of knight f4 ideas. And you might say, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean knight f4 is good? Well, I'll show you really quick, right? So let's say white plays rook a to d1. I can jump my knight onto f4, and what's crazy is that let's say king takes d8 is actually not the best move, but it would be the move that I would make. So let's say king takes d8, rook d1, king c8, and knight to a4. Now suddenly, sure, my king is safe, but it's not really safe because my pawns are just getting attacked. And after bishop c5, because it's forced, bishop c5, and bc5, and queen e3. Now, and you look at my pawn structure, it's pretty terrible. And while this is equal by engine evaluation, I don't really like it. And I don't really see how I'm going to win this, right? Even though I'm playing as black, I still want to create chances where I can see a clear path or somewhat clear that I could win. But in this case, I don't really have good winning chances because my pawn structure are just terrible. Now, after rook takes d8, the other response, which is the best move, is queen takes d8. And what's crazy is that white actually cannot take this knight. Because of the problem with this diagonal. If you look, this rook is now becoming really active because there's no more h pawn anymore. So if queen takes f4, I win in exchange and I will win the game, pretty much. So that's the reason why. But I play knight d7, and thinking that okay, I'm gonna put this knight onto c5 or this bishop onto c5, and after all the trading, I will put the knight here. And I'll be fine. And I did exactly that. So rook a1, play bishop c5, and now knight to d5. I remember here I thought for probably around 15 to 20 minutes. I thought for a while here because I don't want to take. Right? Personally, I don't want to take this knight on d5. But the whole plan ever since I pushed d5 is that the moment the knight jumps to d5, I have to take it. Because if you look, this knight is too good. And so I thought for a while, not because I know I have to take on d5, but I was just thinking for 20 minutes to see, well, okay, what do I do after I take the knight on d5? And at that time, I couldn't quite figure out for what exactly I needed to do. So, but again, at the end, I still take on d5, and rook takes e5, and then after this, I play knight c5 as I planned, and now with less pieces on the board, my position is clearly a lot less cramped, but it's still better for white. So rook after d1, and now I have to take, of course. And here, I play king e7, which I think at the time, I thought it was fine. I mean, it's not that bad compared to the actual best move. But the best move, when I look at the best move, I just thought, well, I'm not going to play that move because... So the best move is f6, which is actually safe. The only reason I didn't play is because I saw queen c3, which is what the continuation, and then eventually there will be some infiltration, and I wasn't sure how I would be able to deal with this infiltration on g6. So I decided, okay, f6 is coming from white, so I will play king e7 to stop f6. Now, if f6 play, of course, it's not great. Takes, I could just take an f6, and I'm in a dark square. So even though my king is kind of out here, because white has no access to the dark squares besides the queen, I'm actually fine. So after queen c3 here, played by white, now I play knight d7. I still don't play f6 here because again, the same reason here is what I was scared about. But of course, the engine just laugh at it and just say, well, the infiltration doesn't do anything, and then I could just play king f8. Oh well. Um, this is where I learned, right? Is that sometimes some infiltrations are not that scary, but it needs to be calculated thoroughly. Oh, so after knight d7, which still prevents f6, by the way, and also, of course, protecting e5. What I miss is queen b4, and now my king to e7 move just became wasted because I have to move it back to e8. Now I cannot move it back to the 8, of course, because of the pins here, and now f6 is a massive threat. And after gf6, bishop h3 wins the game. I cannot take because of checkmate, so, and since I cannot take, well, I just lose a knight here, and I will lose a game. So queen b4, I have to play king e8. And now after bishop f3, which to me it looked a bit weird because I don't know what that move does. If he wanted to attack on c4, he could just play bishop f1, and if he want to do this, he probably should have played f6 or something. But I was actually expecting him to play queen c3, simply just going back because the queen over here, while it does things, it doesn't do a whole lot. So bishop f3 here was not bad by any means. I just thought, okay, it doesn't exactly do anything. So I just keep going on with my plan, and I play b5, which is not a good move, simply because of a4. But I thought, after queen a7, I might have some good counterplay with king g2 and queen e3. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think my opponent here also thinks that he doesn't like this. And engine, of course, just thinks that, oh, you can just attack and ignore black's attack. Because if this attack doesn't work out for black loses. Simple as that. Because my king is stuck in the center, and if the rook and the queen cannot get through this bishop fast enough, then I just lose. So let's go with the engine line, see what happens. So queen takes g5, of course. Now king f1, and my knight's hanging. And after queen here, queen takes a6. And okay, now my queen side pawns will be cleaned out, and there's no check on h1, and I will just lose the game because, as I said earlier, my knight is not a great piece, and my rook has no good infiltration. So b5 was not a great move by me, but luckily my opponent got scared of this idea, of this, and of course both of us saw that queen a7, queen e3, which is the whole point of me playing b5. So he got scared. He played queen d2. Now, I thought he would play queen to c3. Because as long as he stopped queen e3, I don't really see a point of me going into this check because I need to protect his pawn here. But if he played queen d2, now he probably was thinking, oh, I'm gonna put pressure on this knight over here. But now the crazy thing is, and I think over here I had around 25 minutes on my clock. I think this game was a 90-minute delay 10. Basically delay 10 per move. So every move you have an extra 10 seconds on delay. And I thought for like 10 minutes here because I didn't realize that this rook was actually trapped. Now you might say, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean the rook is trapped? Well, it is trapped, but with some calculations, right? You need to actually see the whole line to see that it's trapped. And after thinking for 10 minutes, I actually saw that. So I played knight b6, attacking the rook. And now I will explain to you why it is trapped. Because after rook d6, c3 wins the game. As you can see, the queen cannot take. And if this pawn takes, knight c4, and I win the game because of a fork. And there's nothing that white can do. And of course, if queen to d1, I can just take on b2, and suddenly now I have a pawn on b2, and the rook can move, sure, but my knight now gets access to c4, and now my knight pretty much carries the whole thing. And eventually, I will be able to get my queen and my rook into the attack, and my knight will be a devastating piece. While this bishop, well, while being a good defensive piece, it doesn't do enough. So knight b6. Of course, my opponent was really, really frustrated because he also realized that, oh, I found a move. I saw that the rook was trapped. So he just try f6 pretty much in frustration. Again, it's not the end of the world. It's -2 here, and playing f6 of course made it a lot worse. So I take on d5. And queen takes c5. Just a quick note, if f takes g7, I just play rook g8, and after queen d5, rook g7, there's nothing. So let's say queen a8, and I just play queen d8 and queen a6, and now the attack on the king is actually serious. So queen takes d5, gf6, queen a8. Now I was actually still scared here, because even though I'm up in exchange, I need to actually get out of this. Now I know that white will collect a lot of pawns, but as long as I have some pawns left on the board, I should be able to win this still. Even because also I have a queen and a rook, while the white's king has nothing but a bishop that guards the attack. So the queen alone doesn't do enough. So here he played queen c6, king f8, and queen a and g takes f6. Now, if queen takes a6, doesn't do anything because I can either take on g5, right, or I can go queen d4 check and just try to win that way. But I would likely just play f takes g5, just saying, okay, you're not attacking my pieces. You're not attacking. I'm not gonna give you any chance to attack. So g takes f6, and now the important move here is rook h6, because now rook takes f6 is a threat that white cannot ignore, because it's a double attack on the queen and the bishop. So now white has to actually avoid the threat here. So he played queen c5, king g8, queen takes c5, and now queen takes f6. And I thought, he might want to try to keep queens on the board, but after this trade, I was really relieved, and I say, well, okay, this game's over. I simply, because it's rook 4 pawns versus bishop 4 pawns, and as long as I can somehow trade these pawns safely, I will be able to win the game, because this pawn over here is good enough for me to win. So king f2, rook d6, just kind of boxing this king. King e3, f6. Now this is what I started to do, right? So I just play fundamentally and put my king and my pawn and my rook on the dark square where this bishop can never get access to, and also this prevents e5. So that if my king somehow gets into e6 and e5, I pretty much win the game. And so bishop e2, king f7, I go as planned, and he starts trading pawns. I say, okay, cool. I thought here he would try to play king f4, trying to stop my king e5, which of course doesn't do anything because, again, I don't just have a king, I have a rook. So there's a lot of things I can do. But I just play a4, and after trading, once again, I could play king e5 here, but I just put my pawn on a5 and say, well, now you have to get through. Now this bishop is never touching my 2 pawns, and I just have to put my rook in the dark squares. That still gives control of the king. So bishop e5, king e5, bishop e8, rook d4, bishop c6, and now rook c4. And this bishop is overloaded, and white is in zugzwang. And here my opponent resigned, and I had a very nice win against a 2100. So was very happy about my win. And yeah, so that was the top three. Now let's jump into the next game. This was this happened around the end of the school year, so probably about a couple of months ago. This was right before my excuse me. It was right before my finals, my finals too. So I was not playing super well, but I wanted to show this game because this is also a feature, kind of a feature game that I told my friend that I'm gonna have him feature on my video. So as you can see on the screen, it's me as Black again against my good friend Hayden Collins. And if you have watched my videos before, I show a game with him before, and both of us know each other's repertoire really well. And I mean, I also teach him how to play the con. So, and recently he has gotten back to playing the anti-Sicilian, so he's not even scared of my Sicilian repertoire anymore. So, jumped in, we played in the first round, and we were just laughing and just like, oh, we got pair and play each other, and still give our best. Because I wanted to win, he also wanted to win, but he was happy with a draw. I'm not, so I'm much more pressure to try to win the game. So let's see. I really like how this game went, even though the result was not the best. Right? Spoiler: I did not win the game. But still, it was a really great game, and there was a lot of things to learn. So, at e4 c5, and he tried to play the Smith Mora with d4 and c3, and of course I cannot play against the Smith Mora accepted. So, what do you do when you cannot play the accepted? Well, you deny it. How do you deny it? Play the Alapin, make it transpose. Right, knight f6, e5, knight to d5. And bishop c4. Now here I play e6, which this is a new response for me to the Alapin. So usually after bishop c4, the normal response would be knight to b6, and after bishop b3, knight c6, cd4, and all that stuff after d6. Yeah, this is pretty normal stuff. Mainline Alapin, nothing crazy. But of course I don't want to play into his theory, so I decided, I'm gonna play e6 and make it weird. Now, of course, this is not the best move. The actual best move that I learned after this game is queen c7. And I didn't realize, wow, I actually cannot take this knight because I take on e5 and I win the piece back with another extra pawn. So, there was something new that I learn every day. You cannot learn enough. This is the beauty of the game of chess. But I play e6, and the whole idea was if he takes on d5, and this happens, now I'm the one sacking a pawn, and I can play d6 here. And after it's ed6, bishop d6. Now, if you look at this as white, let's flip the board really quick, right? I mean, you have a pawn up, but black has superior development, and now you cannot castle because of bishop h2 threats. Sorry. Now I'll show you what I mean. So let's go a couple more moves. So knight f3 castle. Now white cannot castle. Right? So you have to develop your other pieces. So play bishop e3. If you castle here, obviously bishop h2, you lose the queen, you lose the game. So bishop e3, and now basically you're basically saying, okay, white is just not castling until they move the queen, which if they do is actually not that great for white either. So it's just some new theory that I saw with my e6 move, but I probably will start playing queen c7 at some point. Maybe, once I face the Alapin again. But anyway, so e6, and my Hayden, he looked shocked. He looked shocked, which I was like, yeah, of course. I mean, if he is not shocked by the move, I don't know why I played it. But he just went normally, and it just say, okay, he's gonna take on d4, and now I played d6. So this is the whole point, right? If you saw my previous game, what I do is I just play with this pawn on e6 and d6, and if pawn takes is just never great for white, is because, well, now white has a IQP on d4, and they just give my bishop a tempo to develop for free. So they play knight f3, bishop e7, castles, and now the game proceed pretty normally. Knight c3, and now queen c7, and he took, right? And now what's the downside of pawn on e6? Well, as I said, one of the downside is this bishop, right? And I have to figure out a way to put it here safely. So I play knight d7, and this move, funny enough, this move by itself prevents all of the Greek gift stuff. So what do I mean by that? So let's say if I play b6 right now, this can be a devastating threat. Now, engines say that white is not winning, but if this is the equal, then this definitely I definitely cannot defend this by any means. So, but even then, so here is say knight g5 is good enough. It's a better move, and just play kind of Greek skip style, and white will be able to break this open. So I just say, okay, I'm gonna play knight d7 and say no to all of that. So let's say this, right? Knight g5, I can go king g8, queen h5, knight f6, and because there's no pawn on this e file, this knight will not get kicked out. And the only way to kick out is either play bishop b2, open up these two pawns, or play on g5, which means that the knight will no longer stay here, and which takes too long, right? And I just play e5, bishop f5, and I will be able to defend the h7 square with an extra piece and win the game. So that's the power of knight d7. So he plays c4, I play b6, right? It does two things, developing this and preventing c5. Now, if he wants to be annoying, he could play bishop e4, but then after rook b8, or I just go bishop b7 by itself, and then I'll be fine. Right? And we traded bishops, so my queen replaced the bishop to control this this long diagonal here. So bishop b2, bishop b7, and now I achieve my my ideal setup. Rook to c1, rook a c8, and now this is back to equal for a little bit. And now d5. This is the crazy move that both of us were looking at the time we were playing. And it's a risky move because I cannot take, of course, because I don't want to open this up, and I want to keep my pawn on e6 for various reasons. I can't remember exactly why, but I don't want to open this for absolutely no reason. And I also looked at e5, but e5 is not great either, because even though I blocked this bishop temporarily, this is still kind of a massive threat. And also bishop f5 is also another move that I was looking at, and engine liked this move as well. So I decided I'm not going to play e5. And so what did I find? I found the best move in the position. And if you just look at this and saw bishop f5 was a good move, well, similarly, bishop f4, it's a great move. And the reason it's good is because this bishop on f4 is a very underrated piece, and it also can be defensive on the g7 pawn, and also blocking all of these threats, right, on the Greek skiff, which means that it does a lot of things. And now my friend Hayden played rook c2. I told him after the game that I asked him why he didn't play rook c3, and his answer simply was just that, well, he saw that it blocked this and all that stuff. And I at the time I actually thought rook c3 was better than rook c2, which the engine actually said that okay, rook c3 is better, but the evaluation is pretty much the same. So rook c2 was fine. But rook c2, I just simply go knight c5. And now, again, because the bishop on f4 defends g7 and indirectly h7 as well, I can move this knight now, and now this pawn structure becomes really, I wouldn't say weak, but it's now much more cautious for white to deal with. Oh yeah, I remember now. So I was talking about rook c3 because by going rook c2, he's blocking his bishop back to b1. So I was looking and I say, well, if you play rook here and I play knight c5, he could at least drop it back to b1. And I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine, but I guess it's not. So now knight c5, now he needs to figure out what to do with this bishop, and he has to drop it back to e2 now, which I was really happy because I said, oh wow, I'm glad that the bishop is gone from this diagonal, so now I don't have to worry about it anymore. So now I played rook fd8. Now it's my turn to attack because, again, d5 is a very risky move because if it works for him, I lose. But if it doesn't work for him, he loses the pawn for minimal compensation. So queen d4, f6. I saw this, right? And again, because of the pin, he cannot take this, and d6 is just not a great move. Now I play c3, bishop h6, and queen h4. Now this is what I kind of miss a little bit because, so the point of this move is that it's threatening bishop takes f6. So let's say if I got greedy and I take on d5, he can take on f6. Now that I'm looking at the engine, it laughs at the bishop takes f6 because it say, oh, you take, and then you play d4. Which, of course, I would not be able to find it because, well, my whole point is to try to keep the pawn, and then you say, oh, I can just sack the pawn. Now for this, okay, d3 is a threat, sure. But still, I don't understand. I didn't really understand, or at least I wasn't able to calculate why this move was so good, right? But apparently, there's a lot of things going on over here. And there isn't any immediate checkmating threats because my knight on c5, again, stops this bishop from going into this diagonal over here. So that's probably why. But both of us at the time, we were scared of bishop. We were looking at bishop f6. And both of us were like, yeah, that has to be the move. That has to be the move. And that has to be stopped. So I went with the defensive move, queen f7. And, you know, it went from winning to equal, which is fine. And now knight d4, which is another annoying move that makes the position really complicated because if I take this, which I did, he goes knight f5, and now I need to figure out what to do with this bishop. So I found bishop g5, and it's the only move that keeps me in the game because it keeps a tempo. It keeps a tempo right on the queen, and now I have another move to respond, and my bishop isn't captured immediately. So I also found g6 here, which pretty good, honestly pretty good, and it's the only move because I need to kick this knight out ASAP, right? Because it's pretty clear that white's next move is going to be either h4 or f4. I don't know which one is better, but kick this bishop back to h6. And me moving the king doesn't really do much because, again, I need the bishop to be in contrast with this bishop. I cannot allow this. And if I allow this, I pretty much just lose the game. I will lose the game at some point. So I went g6, and h4 doesn't work here because this. When I take the knight, I also take the queen. So attacks the queen. So, and he has to move it out of this pin, and my bishop will get out. Like I said, queen f5. At least I'll be able to play this, and yeah, he can get like 2 pawns. Is it 2 pawns? Yeah, he can get 2 pawns for it, but my bishop will be really strong. And so knight to d4 is what he play. After g6, knight to d4. Now, I also looked at queen takes g5. And I thought, well, if he does this, right? Knight e6, king f8, and takes, I would probably win this endgame because my endgame technique is much better than his, and he knows that. So he knows that if he goes to an endgame, it's really likely that he's going to lose. Because let's say c takes d5, bishop takes d5. Now here, on top of the fact that I'm better at the endgame, I'm also up a pawn. Right now, my pawns are double, and my up a pawn here is double pawns. But he knows that he will mess it up at some point, and I'll be able to capitalize on that. So he decided, well, you know, queen takes g5 is just not a great move, and he went with knight d4, which is worse. But I have to figure out the right line. So, and here I play bishop h6, just kind of trying to play conservatively. Now, of course, I can't. Now here I cannot take this because I think here I lose an exchange if I remember correctly. I might lose an exchange. I don't remember, but is this the case? Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember, but I thought I couldn't take this for some reason. Okay. But I think I was probably more scared about this thing, my bishop getting kicked out. So I was playing bishop h6, and I think after this and bishop f8 and knight e3, I think here is where I cannot take. I think here I probably wasn't really considering d takes c4 at all, which I probably should. But I only consider after this. I think here maybe both of us didn't have a lot of time, so we didn't really consider it. But okay, after knight e3, now I know that I cannot take on c4. I play knight e4, which is the second best move. But here, you know, engine recommends a crazy move d4 and quote unquote sacrificing the pawn, and it's the reason it's not sacrifice because after here and f5, apparently I'm winning because the queen cannot keep intact with the bishop. Now, again, of course, I think here both of us only have less than 10 minutes because this is a 30 minutes game. It's plus 30, but it's for the sake of writing notation every move. And so we need to keep that in mind. Both of us had less than 10 minutes here, so we weren't really playing accurately at all. But at least I played knight e4, which is the second best move. And here I went with my plan, which is to have my knight really, really solid here. And as I said, the reason I keep this bishop is eventually I will be able to play bishop g7 and trade this bishop off. So f5, queen e2, now knight g5. Actually, at the time, I thought that this was a bad move, but now that I actually have time to analyze this, and this is the best move, right? Is it the best? Yes, it is the best move. And somehow I thought that I was playing it wrong, but apparently no. After h4, which I thought was the right respawn, knight f3 is fine because here and here. But then after bishop c4, bishop f3, bishop f7, and here, I'm fine. So, yeah. I think in time scramble, I probably misevaluated my position. But anyhow, he didn't play h4. He just played f3 because he was scared. And, I mean, that's valid. Because he couldn't calculate as far as I do. I mean, even I didn't calculate that far, so I didn't see that much. But on top of that, knight g5 also allows me to have a defensive resource of knight e6, which after d4 and knight d5, I was able to play knight e6, and now I have a solid position. I'm up a clean pawn that I took on d5, And you know, I thought I would win this game for sure. But I underestimated how complicated this position is. Because after rook e1, so rook e8, queen f2, bishop g7. Now, with most of the moves that I made, sometimes, like say this move, bishop g7, it's not a bad move because I'm still better. The problem is that sometimes the moves I make just make it worse, unfortunately. So now he stacks the rooks. I say I don't care, and now I play b5 finally. Obviously white cannot take because I win the knight. Just want to show that really quick. And he plays knight f4, right? He wants to take on b5. And I play the correct sequence. According to the engine. I thought that b takes c4 here would actually be fine, but apparently no. This is actually now equal for oh, if knight takes e6, this sequence is better for black. This is the better sequence. But the right sequence is rook takes e6, rook takes e6, and knight takes e6. Now this is equal for, yeah, this is just equal. So I guess I played the correct move, but it doesn't matter if you cannot play the correct continuation. So I saw this, right? I saw this, but what I didn't see was this next move. So I play queen c6, which is a mistake. Because now the position is just equal. What I needed to play was queen to e3. Now queen to e3, why is that good? Is because after this, apparently white is not entitled to catch this pawn, and while also they have to care about this, after bishop takes f3, I'll be able to win. And I think it's probably just a process of, let's say king f1, I play king f6, and bishop e2. Yeah, I just don't trade. And when they play here again, now I have enough tempo to play g5 and then f4. And because if this pawn is protected, then I would win the game. Because, yeah, here I'm up a pawn. I'm just simply up a pawn, and white cannot defend. But of course I didn't see that because I think at this point both of us has less than 3 minutes in the clock. I was up a bit more. I probably have around 4 minutes, and Hayden only has like 2 minutes. But this position was really hard to figure out. So c takes b5, take on f3, and I thought, oh, I was fine, I was winning, but apparently no. King f8, massive mistake. Here I'm actually still fine as long as I play correctly, but I play king f8 and allows stuff like this, right? Now this is still equal until this. So what I miss here with king f8 is that after this and bishop d5, now bishop a3, king e8, bishop here, and I'm forced to play a6 because this pawn cannot be defended. And after this, king d7, a7, king c7, bishop to a6. Apparently, so this is winning because eventually I will run into Zugzwang, and I have to give up this pawn. And sure, I'll be able to stop this pawn for a while, but not forever. And apparently bishop a3 is not correct for some odd reasons. Because it's like after this, bishop a7 and bishop e4, this is fine for black. I don't know why. You know, this is out of my scope. Probably a grandmaster can explain this to you, but I cannot. So yeah. But after king e8 here, and a6 is actually transposed back to the winning line that I was talking about. But after a6, bishop d7, and bishop b5 is a mistake. I play king c7, and you know, unfortunately here I had a feeling, okay, this is a draw, and I have to offer a draw here because there's no point of keep playing, because both of us we don't really have any progress. And so king f2, bishop e4, and a7, you know, and then we agree to a draw. Now this was not the best outcome of this game. But as you can see, I actually learned quite a bit about the Alapin. And why is it important? Well, the next game will show you why. So let's jump right into the next game because I didn't realize that how much I was talking through these games. So, you know, if this is a longer recording, well, feel free to watch it at multiple occasions. I will leave timestamps on separate games. So yeah, so let's jump right into the last game, which is my absolutely favorite game. It was a crazy game. It's the Alapin, as I said, and there was some sequences at the end that I was really proud I found. So let's get it right into it. So e4 c5, again, is the Alapin. Now this is the correct Alapin, right? Not the delay stuff. And knight f6, e5, knight d5, c4, c d4, d6, knight c3, knight takes c3, bc3, queen c7. This is just normal theory that I played this against this in Blitz a lot, and I score really well because, again, I'm not committing anything too aggressive, right? And I'm playing based on a structure, right? And I'm playing based on ideas. I'm not playing based on theory, exact theory, or memorization. There are some memorization here, sure, but it's the same thing. I can play the same thing over and over, and it's really nice for me to be able to do that. So queen c7, bishop d2, knight d7, bishop d3. Now this is the first moment where he starts sacking the pawn, right? Because he's clearly sacrificing this pawn on e5, trying to force me to take it. If you wanted to play normally, you could just play ed6, bishop d6, and obviously this is not great for white. And I'm very happy with this position still. So he played bishop d3, which is good, which is fine. And pawn takes e5. I know, you know, as long as I don't accept the gambit, it should be okay. And here, of course, he castles, and I don't think take is good either. Yeah, simply not good because, well, now there's a pawn on c3 instead of d4, and there isn't anything clear that white can do. So castles take, and so castle here. Of course, I could take this and play it like a Smith-Morra, but why, right? The pawn. I want my queen to stay on c7, and well, if I take, I cannot do that. It's not by any means bad for black because this is only plus 0.2, but now I have to start playing really accurately and really passive, and I cannot and by doing that I cannot follow what I play. So I play bishop d6 here, just adding protection to this pawn and see what he does. Right? I could play bishop e7 here, of course, but I just say, okay, I'm gonna play bishop e6 because if I have to retreat, well, so be it. It's fine. They play rook e1. Again, I don't want to take it because that's the whole point of him giving up the pawn. And the pawn on d4 is a central pawn that does a lot. So I just go on playing b6. Now, okay, this is not the best move, but once again, if you saw my first game, the evaluation is pretty much the same. And by the same, I mean it's plus 0.5, plus 0.7, but it's nothing about losing. So pawn takes e5, bishop e7, queen e2, bishop b7, knight to d4, a6. Right now, again, I just have the same structure. Familiarity is what matters, right? I play hundreds and thousands of games in this structure, right? And Blitz, Rapid, and Classical in the past 2 years, and I really enjoyed this, and it fits my play style really well. Queen g4, g6, bishop g5. Now here, actually, the engine likes me trading the bishop. And after queen g5, I can actually take this, which again, if you look at this, sure, I'm up a pawn, but there's nothing clear about it. And after, let's say, even queen e3, castles, rook ac1, queen a5, this is almost -1 for black. And if you ask me, I would not be able to understand why, right? I think it's simply because there's actually not any good counterplay for white, if only if black plays accurately. And that's not something I can do consistently. So I didn't trust myself, right? And then I said, there's absolutely no reason to take this pawn. This pawn is always going to be a weak pawn anyways. So why would I take? So I played the second best move, which is knight to c5, simply keeping equality and asking my opponent, well, what are you going to do? Right? You can take my bishop, but you're not gonna have any good attack as long as I don't castle. If you take, I will castle. If you don't take, I just don't castle. Right? So bishop e7, queen e7, bishop e2. And now I've realized the pattern that he's trying to do, because he's apparently trying to start trading pieces off the board, which is very weird. Because as white here, I think it's definitely a lot better for white to keep pieces on the board. And try to keep winning chances. But if he trade pieces, how's he going to win? So I play b5 and just say, well, I'm basically asking him what he wants to do. If he wants to trade pieces, right, he play bishop f3 and trade pieces, which I do not mind. And if he wants to go crazy and go c4, well, okay, I'll take, right? And it's a symmetrical position with slightly different pieces placement. And then I just castle and play the game. There's no pawn on f6, no pawn on h6, no dark square bishop. I'm okay, right? h4, h5, nothing crazy. So here he played bishop f3, trying to trade bishops again, and I was just like, wait, why are you doing that? I mean, sure, my bishop is really strong because he allowed it to be strong, but that makes no excuse to trade a bishop. Now, one of the reason, and I will show you a couple moves later here. So rook c8, just putting pressure on this pawn at c3, bishop b7, queen b7. And this will justify because he wants to lure my queen away from the defense of e6. Now, why does this matter? Because of this move. Right? So, if I take with the knight right now, he has this resource of knight takes e6. Now, I marked it brilliant because I think it's, honestly, that's the best move. And the reason why knight takes a4 is not a move. Because otherwise, nothing justifies knight takes e6. And here I had to play super accurately in order to defend. And apparently the line that I thought about was not the best move, which justifies why I don't want to play it. So my first thought was rook c4. And after knight takes g7, king f8, and queen g5, sacrificing the knight once again. Right? If I take this, I lose. I just lose. Because after rook c8, white can play e6, and now you see this knight over here is an extra knight that does absolutely nothing. So yeah, so that whole problem was why I didn't take it. On top of the fact that taking on e6 is simply not great. So this simply is just, oh wait, no, yeah. So here, king g8, and okay, yeah. So rook ed1 going for this. Yeah, not rook e3. My bad. Rook e. Somehow I thought rook e3 was winning, but I guess it's not winning. But hey, this is completely winning for white. Now I just say, no, thank you. I am not playing that. Now, the drawing line, or not drawing, the only line that equalized after knight takes e6 is h5, not this. h5. And the reason this is equal is because, well, after rook queen to h3, I can take on c3, and now the queen actually has no squares on this diagonal anymore. But that doesn't mean I can kick it out, because white can block it with rook e3, and after takes, and now it's like, well, what do I do? I still cannot take this knight, of course, but I can't just let it there. And after queen to b6, knight f4, this is a completely equal position with chances going to both sides, because, well, I have 2 pawns here that marching off the board, but white pieces are really close to the king side, and e6 can come at any point. So I said to myself, well, why am I allowing this for absolutely no reason, right? Because sure, I can castle here, but again, why am I allowing this when b takes a4 is clearly the better move, right? I actually thought for a very long time here. Now, given this is a 25 delay 5 game, right? Which means that I only have 25 minutes on the clock for the whole game. And I think I spent a good 15 minutes on this move. Because I was saying, well, the piece that I'm going to take is going to decide the game. And I was ready to play blitz after b takes a4. And yeah, so because all the moves coming afterwards was really straightforward and very, very easy for me to find. And I just have to trust my intuition and play immediately. So b takes a4, rook a to b1. And now I thought, I was like, well, shouldn't he have played this? Well, probably, but I don't know. I don't know which one matters more, because either way, it's not a great move. It looks good on the surface, but again, the problem is that I just tie my queen right into the defend, and now you look, this knight is now absolute menace, right? Defending all of the key squares and the key pawns of the position. And now, as I said, I trust that this pawn will win me the game. And you'll see why. So after queen e7, h4, respond h5 immediately, queen g3, and now I castle. Finally, right? Finally, I'm able to castle into safety. And now I'm just up a pawn on a4, and white actually has minimal to zero counterplay. And so, a desperation, I mean, of course, it doesn't look clear enough where it's like over, because I still have to prove my defense. So rook b6, queen c7, I just say, well, if you're going to stack your rook here, and I'm going to start playing a3 and a2, and then you have to start proving stuff. And again, knight to e6 here actually does not work, because after knight takes, and if he wants to sack what he wants, sure. I have queen g7, and this is the important resource that I need to figure out, because otherwise it will be a draw, you know. So so he went so he after queen c7, he goes rook c6, and I just say, okay, you want to trade queens, I'm fine, and you give me the b file now, so I'll take it back. Rook c8, queen g5. So now I see his plan really clearly, right? He's preventing queen e7 going into the defending, and he's preparing g4. And here I probably have around 3 minutes, and wow, I do have to calculate. The moves are, again, it's still really straightforward. I just need to make sure that it actually works. And this is where the pawn on a4 wins me the game. So start pushing the pawn. a3, g4, a2. Pawn takes h5. Now, the reason I don't do this, okay, just go back a bit, right? Yeah, I don't do this because, well, h5, and while I thought this is losing, or even if not losing, it's still, I still have to find a defend with, in 3 minutes, I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to do that. So, if I see a one line that I know is winning, I just have to play it, right? So, g4, a2, and now gh5, and the crazy move comes, right? Queen to b1, attacking the rook. Now, attacking the rook, of course, was not the main purpose of this move. The main purpose of this move is that it defends g6. So if I take this, I can take with the f pawn. Now, of course, I can take on e1, and after a gazillion checks, I'll be able to put a queen on this diagonal and take the pawn on g6, and be able to full rook, and with the pawn here. That was the whole point. So White now realized that he's losing, so he plays knight f3, and I just promote. I actually thought that there was some sort of difference after this, but apparently there was no difference, because again, as I said before, if he plays this, I just take on e1, and then eventually I will be able to put my queen into this diagonal and win the pawn on g6, and I'll be up a rook and a knight. But I thought it was some difference, so I was like, okay, let's just promote to 2 queens and force him to take it, because now if they don't take, there will be some mating stuff, because I have 2 queens, of course. So yeah, so he has to take, and now, yep, I just start taking stuff, and of course I could have played better, right, and tried to give a billion checks, but I just say, well, let's just play the most obvious move. It's queen f5, and after pawn takes, king takes, queen h6, and as you see, there's no more checks for this queen. So now I just play rook g8, and oh well, the attack is over. I'm up a rook and a knight, and I'm about to checkmate this king. And so White here resigned, and this game actually got me to 2100. So I was super happy, and I actually talked with my opponent for a while, because actually we went to the tournament together, and we also happened to play each other in the last round, because we are the only 2000s that has similar points during the tournament. So finally get a game against him. We probably dodge each other like probably, I don't know, 3 to 4 times, whether it's from me or from him. But I was really happy in this game, and again, getting classical games with the Alapin and in the right structure that I really believe in, gave me a lot of confidence, and also helped me a lot, because opening has always been my biggest weakness throughout my lifetime playing chess. So I'm really glad that I'm finally able to find a weapon I can use to help not only help my improvement, but also covering my weaknesses, which is my opening theory. And so yeah, so this has been a very long video, because, well, I haven't posted in a while, so I was thinking, why not just do this, right? I've been trying to do this and record. No, I know it takes a lot of effort and energy, but I think it's worth it to, give myself some games I can look at in the future. Also give you guys some games that, just randomly play by a 2000, and I want to record myself, right, in my journey getting into the master title. So as I get closer, hopefully I can bring some good insights for you guys, and I'm really excited, and I hope that I can make more videos, right, just about my games, whether I play in tournaments or I just play training games online. And yeah, so I'm really happy that I was able to make this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Again, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.